The guys are ready, so let's hand over to Rob Rose, JB, PB and Aldrin, and get on with the show.
Welcome to the
Club Football Podcast,
where the only question is,
does your team make it into the club?
Can he get in? No, he cannot!
Welcome back. I can absolutely remember us recording our Super Bowl show a year ago, and obviously it was made all the better by the fact that 7 days after our Super Bowl show a year ago, one of us was celebrating winning the Super Bowl. As a fan of a franchise that hadn't won in the best part of, 15 odd years. This year, no such luck, but who could have predicted that one of the teams that we were talking about was a team that, listening back to previous pod episodes, I may have predicted that their head coach would be out of work before the end of the regular season. Who knew? I mean, their lack of a quarterback and the fact that they hadn't shored up an offensive line that meant he was effectively going to be a sitting duck. Anyway, all of this can come over the next 60 minutes or so of podcast recording because, gentlemen, we are here. It is the marquee Super Bowl show, and who's excited for what's to come over the next few days?
Yeah, exciting time.
Yeah. Aldrin sounded like one of the Muppets for a moment. I can imagine like his arms flailing with that. It was very nice.
I mean, I feel like I often sound like one of the Muppets, but that's fine.
I also feel feel we should also say other puppet shows are available, just so we're not favouring one.
I don't think the Muppets are going to come after us, JB. I think we're all right.
Yeah, but see, the Muppets are owned by Disney. Other entertainment brands are available as well, so you know.
Hopefully the Muppets love us. I mean, I haven't looked at our subscribers recently, but I can imagine, like, I don't know, Animal or Gonzo maybe slipping in for a bit of podcast listening every week, particularly when it comes to the highlights of the NFL, like Super Bowl LVI. So as I was listening back to previous pods, we've got a few nice twists for this week's Super Bowl prediction episode. Before we get to talking about whether it will be the Los Angeles Rams or the Cincinnati Bengals going into the most important club dub evening of the year, I wanted to bring back a few, I won't call them failed segments. That would be hard on Phil. I think ultimately we just ran out of content, Philip, didn't we? I mean, an untruth, right? So I've decided that what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a new lease of life to the segment I was going to say formerly called Phil's Quiz of the Week. It's going to be called Phil's Quiz of the Week this time because we haven't got another jingle, have we? So yeah, I'll be taking Phil's Quiz of the Week this time round. So you've got that before we kick off. And then, like I say, we'll be throwing ourselves into both sides of the ball, looking at the Rams and the Bengals and seeing just who we think might come out on top. So are you all ready for Phil's Quiz of the Week, Rob Rose edition?
Welcome to Phil's Quiz of the Week.
Yay!
That was even more Muppets. Good work, Aldrin.
That was more intentional, but good. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I like it. So basically for this week's Quiz of the Week, I have two quiz questions. They are related, and the one is going to take a bit of thinking. There are kind of multiple options here. So let me tell you this. With Joe Burrow appearing in the Super Bowl this weekend, he cements Super Bowl quarterbacks called Joe being the second most popular first name for all-time Super Bowl appearances. So second most all-time, quarterbacks named Joe appearing in the Super Bowl. So you know Burrow is one. Let me bring up my little stat sheet here, and then I can tell you that your first question is, how many more appeared in Super Bowls? So you're looking for another 5. So is everyone happy with the rules? So Joe Namath, God, Phil, you're out the blocks really quickly. Joe Namath is one of my 5. He is a guy called Joe who has appeared in the Super Bowl.
Joe Montana.
Joe Montana is another. And Aldrin, did you? Flacco for the Ravens. God, you're rattling through these at a right pace.
Let's slow the roll on that.
You're already at 3 of 5.
Are the other 2 old? Like really?
Yeah.
They're not
Theismann
young.
made one, didn't he? Did Joe Theismann make one?
Joe Theismann.
Yeah,
4 of 5.
Oh yeah, of course he did.
I believe it's pronounced Thiesman, isn't it?
I don't know. I'd have to
Not
ask
in the
Robert
blind
Saleh.
side.
That's not a joke at Phil.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to ask Robert Saleh, see what he thinks.
It's not in the it's not in the blind side. So
Joe
I'll go with
Johnson.
that.
Joe Johnson, no.
Joe Jackson.
You just trying to guess
Oh,
surnames.
goodness me.
They go with first name Joe now.
So is this winning quarterbacks or appearing quarterbacks?
Appearing quarterbacks. The first name Joe
Rudolph.
is the second most popular first name for quarterbacks appearing in a Super Bowl. 6 of them in total. I gave you Joe Burrow. You have already given me Namath, Montana, Theismann, and Flacco. Who remains?
You've got to give us a clue. Like
Okay, I'm gonna give you
era
a
or
clue.
team or
Era.
something.
All right. I'll give you both of those clues, but I'll start with era. See if you get it from era. The
Okay.
closest quarterback in terms of era was Joe Namath. That's the kind of era you're looking.
Okay.
We are going
we're
back a
long way
while.
back.
But then you did get Joe Namath, so
I mean, I'm guessing that Joe Namath is a bigger name than whoever this was.
correct answer, yes. Yes, you are left with the most obscure of the 6. Although in 20 years, maybe Joe Burrow will be when Rob's prediction comes true and he has no kind of NFL career at all. Maybe Joe Burrow's 3 years away from the CFL. Who knows? The other clue, you wanted team, right, for the other clue?
Yeah, let's go for team.
Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, I was afraid you were going to say that.
Oh, goodness me.
The only Vikings quarterback I can remember from that era is Fran Tarkenton.
As his first name isn't Joe. That's not the answer I'm looking for.
He got to the Super Bowl though, right? Frank Tarkenton?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Vikings had a nice little run of making it to championship games in that era, didn't they? They were quite a big deal. Final clue. Born on the 19th of March, 1938.
It's not going to help.
No,
We didn't get it
really.
from the era or team. His birthday
First,
isn't going to
final
help.
clue. His first name's Joe.
Oh,
No,
great.
nobody taking this.
Joe White.
No, it wasn't Joe White.
Joe
it was-
K.
Oh, you are by far the closest, Aldrin. It
What?
was Joe Kapp.
Oh,
Back at the Minnesota Vikings, who famously made the Super Bowl. But if that was your first question, so quarterbacks with the first name Joe are the second most popular in Super Bowl history by appearances. So I want to know the most popular first name for a quarterback based on Super Bowl appearances, and I want you to name all of the players with said first name.
Tom.
Go. So you're going Tom as the most popular name
Oh, I
quarterbacks
suppose I'm
appearing in
thinking-
Super Bowls.
I'm thinking number of appearances rather than number of people.
Everyone else is looking a bit bemused.
I mean, it's like John or Jim, surely. Like,
So Joe
well,
Burrow
I'm
appears in the
more
Super
thinking
Bowl.
like Jim Kelly made shed loads, didn't he?
but again, it's coming back to: are we counting the name once, or are we counting each time that name was in
I
the
don't know.
Super Bowl?
Each time that name's in the Super Bowl. So Joe Montana in the Joes counts for 3 and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, so Phil's got a good point in terms of Brady. If what's Brady's stat for how many
He's
Super
been in
Bowls
like 25% of Super Bowls, isn't he?
Yeah.
25% of Super Bowls since the turn of the century. So do you want me to help you out? So
Yeah.
Tom is the most popular name for quarterbacks appearing in Super Bowls.
And it's only him.
Correct answer. Yes. Tom Brady is the only Tom to have been a starting quarterback in a Super Bowl, yet Tom is the most popular name in NFL history for quarterbacks starting the NFC AFC championship game, the
Way
Super
to bring
Bowl.
my
So there
knee
you
down,
go.
Rob.
There you go. Well, I just thought it was nice after we, really last week's pod was a bit of a love letter to Tom Brady and all the wonderful things he did for this fair sport. So nice that we get some Super Bowl questions and find a way to weave Tom in. But there it was, the renaissance of Phil's Quiz of the Week, Rob Rose edition.
Thanks for listening. That was Phil's Quiz of the Week.
Nicely done.
Nice.
Yeah, hopefully you were
Maybe I'll bring it back in
playing
the
along in
off-season.
Listenerland. Yeah,
I assume
well,
you've still got the. I assume you've still got the music there somewhere.
oh,
Rob,
yeah. Don't
in
worry.
the
I
annals.
mean, I know we're not hearing as we're recording, but listeners will have just heard the intro and outro music for Phil's Quiz of the Week. Yeah, we'll have treated them to that. So there you go. Blaster in the past, throwing ourselves into Quiz of the Week, which means now we can throw ourselves into the more pressing matter of in a few days' time, the Rams are against the Bengals and only one team is lifting the Lombardi. Look, I'm not going to break with tradition this week of all weeks. Aldrin, let's have your lowdown on the two teams. And then we'll throw it round to the rest of the room. Let's hand over to you.
I think it's just a great matchup, isn't it? I know we talked a bit like last week around how well both teams did and, you know, kind of the perseverance in the games and how I think both have fought through a fair amount of adversity, I guess, this year. You know, the Cincinnati Bengals came in with no expectation. Burrow coming back off a horrific injury from his rookie year. The Rams, all these questions around the superstars that they brought in whilst neglecting the draft. And is Stafford going to work out? Is he really that missing piece? And I think it just presents us a fascinating matchup because if I look purely on paper, I can't see beyond the Rams. But then if I did that and just looked purely on paper, the Bengals wouldn't be in the Super Bowl. You know, I think if we were honest, if you looked at, you know, on paper against the teams that they've had to overcome, not only throughout the season, but even in the playoffs, they shouldn't have been in with a shout and they shouldn't be here. And the fact that they are, and that they're going in again with this underdog mentality, with this no expectation, I guess. There's not quite the same pressure on their shoulders. You know, I think with the Rams, you have much more of the expectation of, oh, we want to do it for Donald or Whitworth or, you know, these kind of stalwarts of the game that have been in and around and kind of flirted with success. And yet the Bengals don't really have that. You know, they're a real ragtag young team with a lot of swagger. And I don't know, I just feel like they probably come into it a little bit more relaxed and not having had that disappointment that the Rams had a few years ago, you know, where they kind of got so close and then couldn't do it. So I don't know. I think, yeah, if I look on paper, the way that the strengths and weaknesses of each team match up, then I can only foresee a Rams win. But it's just not gone that way this year. You know, there's been so much going against the grain and against the expectation that I don't think you can count either team out now.
So in a week-to-week league, I mean, it would have been odd, wouldn't it? We talked about how unpredictable the NFL was this year and, you know, particularly mid-season, it felt like anyone could beat anybody. And yet we nearly ended up with the Rams against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, which was probably about half of all people's predictions going into this year.
Yeah.
So like you say, on paper, a lot of people wouldn't have even had the Bengals getting out of the division, yet they're here absolutely on merit off the back of some great performances when others, you know, like the Bills, knocked out, of course, by the Chiefs, and then the Chiefs themselves have fallen by the wayside. So I absolutely see your point. PB, where do you think this game might fall? What are your thoughts going into the big one?
It's hard to disagree with Aldrin, to be honest. I think, you know, conventional wisdom and on paper tells you that the Rams are a stronger unit and should comfortably beat the Bengals, but the Chiefs should have comfortably beat the Bengals. The Titans should have comfortably beat the Bengals, and neither of them have. I think if we go back to our show, you know, in the off season last year, where we talked about who was going to be the division leaders, who was going to make the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. I think we all had the Bengals missing the playoffs. We all thought taking Chase was a mistake and they should have shored up their offensive line through the draft. And that still don't disagree with that view because Joe Burrow gets hit a lot. You know, he was sacked a ridiculous number of times against the Titans, but you can't say that if he didn't have Chase to throw to, that they wouldn't have, you know, have made the Super Bowl. I think the connection between Burrow and Chase has been a massive part of that. And, you know, it's one of the reasons that they're there. So it's easy to count out the Bengals and to say that the Rams will win it, but it's been one of those up and down seasons. I think the Jags beat the Titans, didn't they? And the Jets beat the Bills, or the other way around. I can't remember. There's been some really, really strange results. Ones that you wouldn't pick. The Rams beating the Buccaneers in the playoffs, for example, obviously, a complete upset. And
I picked it.
Okay, yeah.
Nailed on.
And so I think what you said as well, it matches up. I don't think the Bengals D is anything particularly to be feared. I think if I'm Cooper Kupp, I'm not worrying too much about going up against Eli Apple, for example. And that front, the front two, for example, of coming off the edge of Aaron Donald and Von Miller is a pretty scary proposition, or Donald on the interior. And Jalen Ramsey at cornerback, he's going to be on Chase all night, you've got to think. But then, Burrow's got Boyd and Higgins to throw to as well. Azama as well, a tight end has shown up at key times this year. So I think the strength of the Bengals is in the offense. And if the game becomes a shootout, then they've got a real chance. But I think if the Rams kind of step on the throat a little bit and press them and really smother them on D, it's going to be probably a good night for Los Angeles and a dull night for any neutrals watching. So I think D on D, the Rams have got the strength there. I think offensively, it could be a shootout and a really exciting game. And obviously, I hope it goes that way. I think the ideal would be to see the Bengals get up early, a touchdown, a couple of scores, something like that. So the Rams then have to come and chase the game, and I think that would make it more of an exciting proposition.
No, I think just the Rams being the Rams would be great. Jumping out to an early lead and then absolutely having the worst third quarter that they could possibly have, that gives Burrow that kind of same Kansas City Chiefs impetus to go at them. I think that would be great because, I think that would just be hilarious. And a very Rams thing to do this year.
In some ways, I'd like the Bengals to have a kick to win it because McPherson's been ballsy and called the last two games as he's just gone up to go and kick it. And doing that in a Super Bowl, 3 games in a row.
Does anybody want to see a Super Bowl decided by a kicker? They're not even football players, really.
Listen to Pete Carroll over there. Look at you. I will say...
Just throwing it in the mix because they always say it. It's always the older coaches that are we're not even... And they are. They're the most important thing in clutch moments.
Well, yeah, the value of them this year has not been underestimated. Although in the playoffs, I can't believe, again, we talk about the difference between the regular season and the postseason. Kickers have just been absolutely on fire, haven't they? I mean, there've been a couple of missed kicks. In fact, Matt Gay missed one, didn't he, for the Rams last week? But there hasn't been many at all. And in those pressure moments, they're obviously swinging the leg and getting that pigskin going in the right direction. To the points you two have made before I hand over to JB, one of the interesting ones that PB's kind of touched on, but you brought up originally, Aldrin, is about this ability to overcome adversity. You've got the Bengals who are kind of, we're the second half team. We know what we're capable of after half time. We seem to just, find a groove. And the Rams have been through so much adversity, but all of their own making, really, just getting up, not controlling the game, mistakes at really poor moments. I mean, it's a weird one that, they got past the 49ers with a bit of grit at the end, and getting that turnover against Garoppolo. But actually through that game, a bit like the Cowboys in the rounds before, that they had chances and just hadn't really seemed to do anything like enough. Your phrase about them, having their foot on the throat of the Bengals, I think is a good one, Phil, because when they've had those types of moments, they haven't really pressed home an advantage really in the playoffs quite. Although you'd have maybe argued being 20 plus points up against the Bucks should have been enough. Maybe it was a real that. Anyway, JB, lots of interesting themes already, and we're going to get on to individual matchups in a moment, but give us your thoughts. Rams Bengals, where do you see it being won or lost?
So I think there are a couple of good points that both Phil and Aldrin have raised that I think are worth addressing. I think when it comes to the Rams, there was something Aldrin said about the Rams having something to improve, winning this one for Donald or winning this one for Ramsey or something like that. And there's a part of me that thinks the Rams need to win this for McVay because we can't look past what was almost a second half collapse against the 49ers. Yes, ultimately the Rams got the interception against Jimmy G to kind of eliminate any possibility of the 49ers doing anything. But the Rams let the 49ers back in the game, and that inventive Sean McVay offense that we hear a lot about and we see a lot of seemed to disappear, which is exactly what happened against the Patriots the last time McVay was in the Super Bowl. So if I'm a Rams fan, if I'm wanting the Rams to win, I'm wanting that ghost put to bed and the Rams to come out and not be immediate razzle-dazzle like we've criticised teams like the Lions and that for this season. Not flashy for the sake of flashy, not flashy because you can't do the basics well enough to get anywhere, but just inventive and exploiting the Cincinnati defense that Phil's kind of mentioned has probably got some issues with it that can be exploited by a mind like that. I think while we're talking about the Rams, Aaron Donald has to be the priority for the Bengals in terms of whatever they're going to do. Their game plan has to start with, before we do anything, how we stopping him, because that guy will absolutely ruin everything about your day if you let him. He needs triple coverage sometimes, and even then that's not as effective. So they've got to do something about the reigning but not going to be reigning going into the game defensive player of the year. For the Bengals, I kind of want to go back again to something that Aldrin said when he was talking about kind of the swagger and the attitude of the Bengals. And we're talking about a team with their quarterback, star quarterback, going into his second season, kind of performing way above expectations. You know, the big thing has been asking, why not us? And the quarterback's been leading that. He's kind of been leading that in the media. He's been leading that in team discussions. There's always the question of why not us? And then that team lines up for the Super Bowl. And the first snap of the game, the ball goes straight past Peyton Manning out of the end zone for a safety that the Denver Broncos never recover from. And the Seattle Seahawks win the league, win the Super Bowl. That's awfully similar to what we're talking about with the Bengals. The Bengals are asking, why not us? The Bengals have got a swagger about them that we haven't seen from them before, and we haven't seen a lot of other teams match. And there's just as much of me that expects us to be like, we're talking about the Rams. You know, how can it be anything but the Rams? Well, we've seen it happen before. Why can't it be the Bengals? And the Bengals have come back from deficits, like Aldrin and Phil just kind of talked about that point. You know, the Bengals are really good at coming back in the second half and making a game of it. So why can't that be what we see this time?
I will say on your point, JB, I mean, we're recording this early on in Super Bowl week, I suppose, in relative terms. And the weird thing about the Super Bowl is it feels like there's 100 different interviews with 100 different players every day till the game kicks off. So the narrative could change. But I'm not a huge fan of this, we want to win the Super Bowl for. And you mentioned it, Aldrin, Donald's coming up a lot. A lot of players saying, you know, we want to win the Super Bowl for Aaron Donald. I'm just not a fan of that as a kind of, as a narrative going through Super Bowl week. And we've seen teams do it before. I mean, you've got, you know, the famous Steelers Super Bowl, haven't you? When, you know, they're talking about Jerome Bettis being back in Detroit. You know, we've had those kind of stories in the past, but I just don't like the approach from LA. And also Jalen Ramsey's comments today about Jamar Chase. And they said, oh, you know, are you going to want to be lined up against Jamar Chase? And to be fair, his response initially was, yeah, of course I do, every snap all night. But I just feel they've got to be a little bit careful that they don't talk themselves into, I don't know, talk themselves into a situation that just isn't going to play out on the field. Because I think when you start thinking about we'd love to win one for Donald, or we'd love to win one for Whitworth, or we'd love to win one for Ramsey, there's an element of, well, let's get it won. And then you can start saying, well, you know, it was important to get Aaron Donald a ring. It was, yeah, I just think to talk about that beforehand just feels not in bad taste, but feels a little bit more arrogant than I'd probably want a team to sound in Super Bowl week. Now, they might rock up on Sunday, do everything they're talking about doing, like you say, on paper, and they'd probably be my pick anyway. The Rams look the better of the two teams. But it just doesn't feel the narrative I'd want, really, for Super Bowl week. And the why not us, you said it, Phil. I think for the neutral, this whole why not us and this kind of, I don't know, this unbeatable and, you know, swagger, confidence, whatever you want to call it, from Cincinnati feels a slightly more appealing story to get behind, really. Feels slightly more appealing to pay a bit of attention to. So a few interesting stories already. We've talked about some of the people making these great quotes. Now what I'm going to do is go around our virtual room again, coming back to you, Aldrin. And what I want is the key matchup on Super Bowl Sunday. Give me a defensive player against an offensive player, or whatever your pairing's going to be, and tell me who are the difference makers and where this game could literally be won and lost.
Well, I mean, I'm probably going to steal one of the other guys, but I do think that the key matchup is Chase against Ramsey. And probably the reason that I call that out is not just, you know, I know Ramsey's comments. I thought Ramsey's comments were fine. You know, somebody said, do you want to be lined up against Chase every snap? And obviously he says, yeah, of course I'd like to, but I'll play where my coach wants me to play and whatever we need to do to make the team win. So I thought that was fine. But the reason I think it's a key matchup is that in a critical moment the other week, the Rams paired Ramsey up with Mike Evans against the Bucs, assuming that we can roll coverage over the other side and we'll just leave Ramsey up against Evans and hope and trust him to win that matchup. Yeah. And he got blown out of the water by Mike Evans. Yeah. I know it was a brilliant throw by Brady. It was a great route by Evans, but nonetheless, Ramsey was left floundering, trying to look for the ball when it was a touchdown in the end zone. So I think that's the reason that I call this out, because I'm of the opinion that Ramsey is probably one of, if not the only real shutdown corner left at the minute. You know, I think there's been some good cornerbacks like JC Jackson, I think has been really good. I've kind of had my say on Trevon Diggs and, you know, how good I think he is as a corner. But I think Ramsey is the real shutdown elite, you know, we've had a lot over the years, but he's really the one stalwart at the position, I think, at the minute. But in the playoffs, he has been beaten a few times. You know, that not just that route, but a couple of other ones he's been beaten. And I think this is why this matchup's so critical, because you need Ramsey on top form. If he's going to cover Chase the whole time, or even if he's covering in part of the time, he's going to have to be really on his game, because I think that the reason that pass rush is so good for the Rams is because you've got players like Ramsey and others in the backfield that just make a quarterback pause for a second, because that coverage is tight. And then it gives an extra second or a millisecond for Donald or Miller or Floyd to make it to the quarterback. And I think Chase has been so electric. And what I do feel like the Bengals might do is what we saw a little bit of in the Chiefs game, but you've seen it a lot from the 49ers, is just get the ball in Chase's hands, you know, on jet sweeps and, you know, even put him at running back, maybe just get the ball in his hands because he's electric, and maybe take away that threat of Ramsey covering him and keeping him to a really quiet game. So that's the reason it's so critical for me, is because I think Chase will go in with absolutely no fear. I don't think he's feared any cornerback or any defense this year, and he's burned a lot of them. Ramsey is the best cornerback he is going to come up against in the league in the most critical game of his life. So I think if Ramsey has a good game, then I think it's a real long night for the Bengals. If Chase has a good game, then it makes things really interesting. So yeah, that's the key matchup for me.
I think that's a great one to call out. And I think I'm with you. I think if Chase has a 150-yard game, I think all of a sudden that's a coin flip game. If you've got players like him having 150 yards, maybe a touchdown, you know, all of a sudden you start to think, well, hold on, if that were to happen, do I still fancy the Rams? The thing that worries me a little bit with what you said. And I know they've had 2 weeks and, there's a little more prep time and they can maybe be more creative. But I feel like everything you've just said, they should have been thinking about for the Chiefs game. And yet Chase really wasn't kind of dialed in that first half in any way that made a difference against, for my money, just a worse secondary full stop, let alone, minus a kind of talent like Ramsey out there in the backfield. But yeah, I love that. Love that as our first major matchup. PB, I'm coming over to you for the second. Where can you see the critical matchups being on Super Bowl Sunday?
For me, I think it's going to be the Bengals offensive line against the Rams, defensive front. As I touched on, I think when I spoke earlier, Von Miller and Aaron Donald are going to be absolutely up for it. Donald's obviously not won a Super Bowl yet. He's got 3 defensive player of the years and is going to be gunning for his first ever Super Bowl, having lost, 3 years ago now, 4 years ago. And Von Miller has obviously already been to the dance. He's won a Super Bowl with the Broncos. And he's coming obviously into the twilight of his career. So he's going to be absolutely laying it all out there to try and, I'm not saying finish because he might not be, I don't think he'll retire this season, but you don't know. But he's going to be wanting, seeing this as potentially one of, if not his last chance to win one. So I think those two are a scary proposition. And I think Miller's really stepped it up as well in the playoffs. I think it kind of gave him a little bit of a new lease of life this season.
Yeah, agreed.
Hadn't had the best start with the Bengals, with the Broncos. But he's really turning it on now. And that's a scary proposition against the team where Burrow's been sacked 12 times in the playoffs already, albeit 9 of which were against the Titans in one game. He's getting hit a lot, and it's all well and good having Chase and Boyd and Higgins and all these playmakers. But if he can't get the ball off quickly and he's getting pressured, that leads to mistakes, that leads to plays being blown up. I think that really is a real key matchup as to whether the Bengals will have success or not. And, we talked at the start of the season about them. We thought they should have strengthened the offensive line. I think they've been a bit patchy, a bit hit and miss through the season. But then ultimately, the results don't lie, and they're in the Super Bowl. So they're not a bunch of chumps that are just going to get walked over by Donald and Miller. And Burrow as well, is really good at scrambling and throwing on the fly. So, it's not to say that he's, he's not going to stand there and get battered if guys are coming at him. So it's a real intriguing matchup and I think is really going to be a key part as to where the game's going to be won and lost. But even against the pass, as well, away from the pass, Mixon obviously has got to find the holes in that defensive front from the Rams. Because I think they're going to need to get that dual threat going. If the Rams know it's going to go through the air all the time, then it's easy to scheme against that if you know that it's always going to be a pass attempt. You can line Ramsey up where you need him and really focus on that. But if they can get Mixon running as well, who's one of the top 10, if not top 5 running backs in the league, then I think it kind of really gives them that dual threat. But you've just got to get through that kind of defensive front from the Rams, which is probably one of the, arguably one of the best in the league.
I love both the points made so far from you and from Aldrin, because for me, as much as I'm trying to think about how can the Bengals win this, and they can't afford turnovers. They need to win that turnover battle, you would think. And all of a sudden, Ramsey with a pick, or like you say, Donald or Miller, those kind of forced fumbles with Floyd as well. Like I say, they swarm the ball, don't they? They swarm the ball carrier. And you've got to think there are so many things the Bengals need to do well and need to get right. And so far, we've got 2 on offense. Chase needs to be good. That O-line and Mixon needs to be good. JB, I'm with you. Key battle for Super Bowl Sunday, please.
So Donald versus the offensive line was going to be my first choice, and then Ramsey versus Chase was going to be my second. So I'm having to fall back onto and I was about to say third option. I still think these are all as critical as the other. It's Joe Burrow versus Matt Stafford, which I know is not. It's not a face-to-face or one-on-one that we're ever actually going to see, because they're never going to be on the field at the same time unless something incredibly interesting or potentially bad has happened for either team. And it comes back to what you just said, Rob, in terms of neither team can really afford turnovers here. I have been higher on the trade for Matt Stafford than other people on this podcast. And there is a part of me that does kind of think, well, if the Rams win the Super Bowl, that must validate me as correct because Stafford has now done everything that Goff did, but taken it even further and gained them the Super Bowl. So they must have won that. But we haven't seen great consistency, I think, maybe from Matt Stafford all season. There have been those games where he really looked like he's going to sink the Rams in what he's doing. He's made not necessarily poor throws, but poor decisions as to where he's going with the ball. Whereas Joe Burrow hasn't made those same kind of mistakes. Like the bigger problems from Burrow have come from the fact that, as Phil said, he's been hit a lot. And it's very hard to run the game plan effectively when you're kind of thinking, right, it's a 3-step drop and then I've got to go through my progressions and it's 1, 2, bang. And you've got to think, okay, so next time I haven't got 3, I haven't got time to look at it. It's literally got to be 1, 2, go. So how both of them respond to the pressure of the game, because as much as people will try and say, oh, you want to just treat it like any other game, this isn't any other game. This is the Super Bowl. You potentially only ever get one of these. And like how many, like we were talking, I can't remember if we talked about this on pod or if we were just talking about it off air, but Dan Marino is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He went to one Super Bowl and never managed it again. And you've got to think both players, I say both Burrow and Stafford, but everybody on both teams has got to be thinking, this could be it. This could be the only one that I ever get. Like Phil sent us a message in WhatsApp earlier on. Other messaging clients are available regarding Andrew Whitworth and Joe Burrow rehabbing with each other last season. Like Whitworth's in his 40s as a left tackle in the league. He's kind of got to be looking at it thinking, this isn't just my last chance for a Super Bowl. This is my last game. So with all of that pressure on, and being the focal of everything, like if something goes wrong, then you're kind of going to look to the quarterback as the reason why. If there's an interception, no matter how much the analysis afterwards is like, oh, that's not on the quarterback, the receiver should have done this, that, and the other. Your instinct is always first, what was he doing? What did he think he saw there? Why did he throw the ball? And all of that. So they're the two that you've got to think are going to have, obviously they're going to have the biggest impact on the game because the ball is always going to touch their hand. Regardless of who's on the field, it's generally always going to go at the quarterback. So who's going to be able to take it?
Yeah, I think I appreciate your point. They're not kind of head to head in that sense, are they? Like, the receiver or cornerback or O-line, D-line in the previous. But I do think you're right. Either quarterback having an off day or either quarterback really succumbing to the pressure. I think we've talked about it's probably more Burrow who's going to face pressure from pass rush. Although I will say this, I mean, the Bengals don't have superstars, but they're incredibly physical. And you saw that at the very end of the first half against the Chiefs, where they kept them out as time expired. It's really difficult because Stafford, I think, has got more around him and a broader supporting cast. So you maybe put more on the shoulders of Burrow. But yeah, I like that. I like that as a duel. And I do think you're right. I think the Rams would absolutely be vindicated bringing in Matthew Stafford. If he wins this Super Bowl, there's no doubt that argument starts to carry an awful lot of weight. My point, way back when they brought him in, wasn't that I had an issue with Matt Stafford. I didn't think he was a dreadful quarterback by any means. I just thought they put an awful lot down to trade for somebody who felt like not quite enough of an upgrade for me. But you know what? We've talked about the Rams should do it. The Rams are better on paper. As a quick one on your point, JB, we saw the Rams and the 49ers go really close, 2 weeks ago nearly now. And one of the things that the Rams were able to do was get Jimmy Garoppolo moving. And when Jimmy Garoppolo is on the move, he's not an accurate thrower. We saw him turn over the ball, really the play that ends the game, being flushed out of the pocket. Whenever he was rolled to his right, the throws aren't quite that accurate. And he was lucky really not to be picked off once or twice more. Burrow, to your point, Phil, though, earlier, is the kind of quarterback who throws really well on the move. And, you start to think about those types of dimensions and you think, well, maybe, just maybe, the Bengals could get something going. But yeah, I like that. So Stafford against Burrow. And I'm pretty fortunate, really, because I had a pick at the very start and it's still on the table. So I'm going to tell you my key matchup this weekend is as follows. I think Chase, as was mentioned, right, is an incredible talent for the Bengals and the type of guy who needs to have an amazing game if Cincinnati are going to win. But I still think Jamar Chase is not only arguably, but in my mind would be the second best wide receiver on the field come Sunday, because Kupp is just incredible and does things that, I know his stats don't lie, and you see that he had most receiving yards, most touchdowns, most catches, all these kind of things. So, it's not like he doesn't get the attention. But I sometimes think people don't take the time to break down just how well he does what he does. He is deceptively quick. So as quick as you think he is even quicker. You get him the ball in space, particularly when he's in those kind of crossing routes or in those almost like those slot routes where he's coming across the front of linebackers. Once he's got the ball in a head of steam, I don't think anyone's catching him. And we talked about the fact that you've got, look, on the one side, you've got, Ramsey lining up against Chase. Well, who are you putting up against Kupp? I mean, the linebackers aren't a weakness for the Bengals by any means, but no linebacker all season has been able to keep him quiet, really, when he does kind of find those spaces in between the corners and safeties. And then, I mean, who's the cornerback you're relying on? I mean, Eli Apple, on the one hand, you go, Apple has a relatively high ceiling. He is a reasonable kind of open field tackler. He has
Doesn't
got
fall far
good...
from the tree.
Well, you know what? I love a pun, so I'll take that. But you know what? He has a few great skills about him. Can be a ball hawk. He's again the kind of person who could end up. I mean, he had a takeaway against the Chiefs. But I mean, what we have not seen from Eli Apple is consistent production, and I think he is hardly the kind of player who was top of anyone's list when it came to free agency targets. He needs a good game to have a chance of keeping Kupp in check. And even then, I don't think it would be enough. But I mean, anything less than a good or great game from Apple. And I mean, Kupp could have this game out of sight. I mean, we talked about, Jamar Chase, if he has a 150-yard game, I think he really equalizes, what we might think about who the favorite is in this tie. I mean, Kupp's the kind of guy who could have a 200-yard game. He could have a 200-yard, 3-touchdown game and end up being MVP, and I wouldn't think any of that was past him. So for me, if the Bengals want a chance, they've got to keep Kupp quiet, and they've got to keep him to, I mean, can you keep him to no catches? I mean, I think you've got to keep him to shorter gains and make sure you kind of infield kind of tackling when he's around and moving is as good as it can be. But that'd be my pick. I mean, I suppose Apple, but in reality, the entire Cincinnati Bengals defense against Kupp would be my matchup. Before we move on to the next topic, before we put a team in Club Dub to finish, I do think your point about Mixon is a good one, Phil. I think if you look at where do the Bengals have better players, to your point as well, Aldrin, on paper than the Rams, running back is one. I think Mixon is going to be the best running back on the field on Sunday. I mean, place kicker. I know we were talking about McPherson and that attitude. I think I'd probably take him over Gay. Quarterback is, I don't know, arguable. I mean, he's young, but Matt Stafford has the experience. But yeah, I think those could be key matchups too. But I like what we did. So one more round the room. Aldrin, I'm back to you. And what I want from you now is a little bit quicker than the first two. I want your outlandish predictions. Super Bowls are always remembered for something, right? Some event, something that happens that makes them different. Whether it's 28-3, whether it's the lights going out, Ravens against the 49ers, whether it's the helmet catch, whether it's the Philly special, there's always something. Give me your outlandish prediction that the world will be talking about the day after Super Bowl Sunday.
Joe Burrow's first snap. Aaron Donald, forced fumble. First play of the game. That is what's going to happen. He is going to bulldoze through that line, smack that poor Joe Burrow in the mouth, ball out, Rams ball. That's my prediction.
So you're only going Rams ball. I mean, his first snap could be at his own 20. I mean, are you going any bolder? I mean, JB just brought up the safety from the first play of the game.
Look, in for a penny, in for a pound. Sure. Returned for a touchdown.
Yeah, returned for a touchdown.
Either way, poor Joey B is getting smacked around on that first play because they're all coming for him. Set the tone for the game. But yeah, that's my prediction.
It's got to be a run, hasn't it? The first play of that game has got to be a run.
No, I think they want to put it in Burrow's hands and he's going to get absolutely murdered.
Right, okay. Outlandish prediction from Aldrin then is Aaron Donald setting the tone with forced fumble, strip sack or similar, and the ball being in the hands of the defense immediately. PB, what have you got? What's the most outlandish prediction you've got for Super Bowl Sunday?
I don't want to just pile on the Bengals, but
go on, McPherson breaks the kick record, 68 yards to win the game.
My outlandish prediction will be the Bengals to be shut out.
Wow, the Bengals being shut out. I was about to say, when was the last time we saw really a Super Bowl team shut out? But I suppose the Chiefs were hopeless. And then actually the Rams last time they were there were pretty hopeless on offense, weren't they? So we've got a bit. So you think the Rams are going to shut out the Bengals? Are we talking no TDs or are we talking a donut on the scoreboard? Are we talking a zero?
That's not what I think. It's my outlandish
prediction. So the outlandish prediction is the Rams will shut out the Bengals. Well, I love it. I love it. Like I say, go big or go home. JB, your outlandish prediction for Super Bowl Sunday is?
Jamar Chase goes over 80 yards on a touchdown on a single play. So not collective over the game. There is going to be a Burrow to Chase for over 80 yards that ends in the end zone.
Wow. Well, there you go, Aldrin. That answers your question of who wins the duel between Ramsey and Chase. Then. if he's 80 yards to the house, I think we can say Chase is having a big day. What's mine going to be?
So when that happens, the field at SoFi Stadium is going to look like Twin Pines Mall car park after the DeLorean takes off for the first time. All you're going to see is smoking tracks from where Chase has been.
Unfortunately, though, based on Phil's prediction, it'll get called back for a flag and I'll get shut out for the rest of the game.
Yeah. Right,
that is very true. And also just other time travel films are available.
Nice. I was going to go, the game goes to overtime, decided on the first drive of overtime, and it perpetuates this whole thing about the overtime rules being unfair and all this kind of stuff. But actually, I don't
wait till the complaint that Josh Allen didn't get a chance to touch the ball in the first half of overtime for the Super Bowl. Indeed,
right. So I was going to go that way, but now I feel like it's not bold enough. Right.
Overtime rules scrapped mid-game.
Overtime rules scrapped.
Decided on a coin toss.
I tell you what I'm going to go for. I am going to go for a touchdown being thrown by one of the backup quarterbacks going into Sunday. So I wouldn't wish injury on anybody, right? But we've got two quarterbacks who are, definitely going to be in the crosshairs of the other defense. So I'm going to go a famous, not just any touchdown, one that goes down in Super Bowl folklore, thrown by one of the backup quarterbacks, which I think, who is it for the Bengals? Is it Allen? I'm trying to think who's the Bengals.
I assume it's Nick Foles to do a Philly special.
What, the backup quarterback in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I was going to go, is it Brandon Allen? Is he the backup?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go backup quarterback, throws a memorable touchdown pass, and there are outlandish predictions for Super Bowl Sunday. Cannot wait. Right. Quick one before we get to who's going in Club Dub. Super quick. Anyone looking forward to the halftime show this year? I'm not a big fan of
as much as the Pro Bowl.
No, to be fair, I think it'll be quite good. I'm not a massive. It's not going to be as. I love the weekend, so it's not going to be as good as last year. But I think it generally will be quite good. I think there's a limited amount of time, and there's a number of artists to get through. So I think they're going to play all the hits rather than
None of the misses.
rather than the stuff that we don't want to hear.
Maybe
But
album tracks.
I think it'll be quite, a bit of nostalgia really. Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, Eminem, Mary J. Blige is all right. Don't really know much about Kendrick Lamar, but I think it'll be pretty good. I think they'll work it quite well. It's in LA. They're going to put on a show, aren't they? So
No Coldplay, is it?
It's no The Who in Miami. Maybe that should be the outlandish prediction. They all do B-sides nobody's heard of. Everyone's just looking at each other.
I don't mean this to sound as potentially negative as it's going to be. It's not going to be the worst Super Bowl halftime show that some of us have watched, because some of us watched Justin Timberlake when they didn't have the mic set up correctly, so no one at home could hear him.
Yeah, I seem to think that's what Janet Jackson was so upset about. Yeah, that seems to be my idea.
Yeah, better than the halftime show at the AFC Conference Championship last week, where they had the stage directly behind where they were doing the halftime studio show, and
Boomer Esiason trying to shout over it.
Could not hear it.
It was brilliant.
That was for anybody who hasn't seen it, and I'm assuming that might be Aldrin. They had the CBS guys, and bless Bill Cower and Nate Burleson and that, who were trying to carry on. And then when it went to Boomer Esiason, who just went, I can't hear any of you. I don't know what you've just said. And just abandoned any attempt at trying to carry on.
He did just abandon ship, didn't he?
Personally speaking, it's like I'm not a rap fan, shockingly. But there is a part of me that's like the first.
You bought an Eminem album when we were younger.
I mean, everyone bought an Eminem album.
No, he
younger.
bought a pack of M&Ms, Phil. It was a different thing.
M&Ms would be good right now. But
other
part of me goes back to
are available. Crikey,
see, I wasn't going to do it this
most
time.
Obvious one of the lot.
I know, but I wasn't going to do it. I remember the first Super Bowl we all watched together, which was the aforementioned Seahawks and Broncos one, with Bruno Mars as the halftime act, and thinking, I don't really like Bruno Mars, he's a bit rubbish. And at the end of it, was like, oh, wow, that was actually really good.
Bruno Mars on the drums, he was epic.
Yeah.
I think it'll be
knows?
a good show. It'll be all right.
Yeah. Maybe they'll have, they've been playing California Love a lot with it, so maybe they'll have a hologram of Tupac.
That would be an outlandish prediction. So you should have gone down that route. What do they call those? Those performers? Because you have them sometimes, don't they, where they have these...
A hologram.
No, but I mean, when you have obviously these famous music stars who have since passed, and they do these kind of... Nat King Cole did one. Anyway, yeah, sorry, I'm going down the wrong track now. But yeah, maybe a Tupac themed halftime show would be a good thing in LA. It feels like the right audience for it, right? So we've done a lot, as Phil said, we focused on the hits, not the misses. It's now time for the predictions. You've given me your matchups. I want to know who's going to win, by what score, and any other detail you think is necessary. And whoever carries the most votes is going to find themselves in the Super Bowl special edition of Club Dub. Aldrin, your picks first, please.
Rams for the win, 30-17.
Wow. Okay.
Wow, indeed.
Big margin for the Rams. 30-17. Rams win, says Aldrin. PB.
I will say Bengals to beat the Rams 27-20.
They've been shut out a minute ago, so things have improved for Cincinnati. PB's all over this. Go again, because I was already thinking about the gag I was going to make, rather listen to your score. So Bengals 27-20, was it?
Bengals 27, Rams 20.
Oh, one score game in your case then. JB?
So I have also gone for the Bengals, and because I thought I was the only person going for the Bengals, I went for a slightly more outlandish score of Bengals 35, Rams 31.
Why not? I am absolutely amazed that all four of us aren't going for the Rams. I appreciate there is a Cinderella story here with the Bengals. I really do, and I'm not against it. I mean, as an NFC West, fan, then again, I don't want to put this out there, but I did very fortunately a couple of years ago get to go to Rams training camp, and they were very nice, and it was lovely to meet some of the players. Anyway, yeah, so I do have a bit of a soft spot for the Rams, but even so, like you, Aldrin, so many things have to go right for the Bengals, or conversely wrong for the Rams for this to stay competitive. What did you go? 30-17. Do I have it that wide? I'm going to go 20... You know what? I'm not. I'm going to go 31-24 in favour of the Rams. Let's make it a bit more high scoring. So does that mean we've spent an hour teasing that we were going to put one of these teams into Club Dub and we haven't? Is that where we've ended up?
I also feel like Phil and James just forgot everything they said about how dominant the Rams D is going to be and how the Bengals are going to struggle. And then it's like, yeah, I think the Bengals are going to win by a margin.
If you listen back to the podcast, I know you will. I believe what I was saying was this is how the Rams will succeed. Not that I thought they would, but if they were going to win, that's how they do it. And we would also make a point of the fact that up until you asked Phil the question of who was going to win. Before you got to the point of asking Phil the question, Phil had the Rams picked and appears to have yet again changed his mind as we've been talking.
I think the Rams will win. I think conventional wisdom says the Rams will win, but on any given Sunday, and I want the Bengals to win, so.
Well, there you go. I can't believe it. I almost feel like rather than putting neither of them in, we should put both of them in. You know, it feels like both teams. I mean, they're NFC and AFC champs, but I mean,
I'm
the
not
Bengals
sure you understand how the Super Bowl works, Rob. They can't both win.
The thing is, but you're saying that when I think in the last two things you said, you have picked both the Rams and the Bengals.
And I'll be able to say whichever team wins that I was right.
Yeah, it's like JB waiting for... he's like, the Bengals are going to win, but if they don't win, Matt Stafford was right. I knew it all along. I told you were all fools. It's like you're just all edging your bets. So ultimately, we all think the Rams are going to win, but PB and JB aren't playing the game properly. So, I don't know. Any given Sunday, Phil?
I do not think the Rams are going to win. The Bengals are definitely going to win.
The Bengals are going to win?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
although Phil's in this conventional wisdom says the Rams, you're absolutely the Bengals are going to win.
I had the Bengals from when we first put this down.
Okay. So Aldrin, I've got to throw over to you here as the other person, sane person who thinks the Rams. As we're 2-2, do we place spread-based bets on this? Is it sandwiches?
Yeah, I think so. But particularly as well, my record in the playoffs for predictions has been pretty dang good. So
it's not been bad.
I'm willing to stake a sandwich on it.
In the words of Eddie Hearn, go on then. So I think the Rams will win, but yeah, why not? Go on then.
We're really short on food for the Super Bowl as well. So yeah, it's a good job we've got sandwiches.
Yeah, nothing else
Aldrin,
to
you're
do.
Talking about us having enough food, right? Phil was telling us, I think, just before you joined, that apparently we might not have all of his American snacks, which are currently sat. Where are they sat, Phil?
I feel like this is unpod-worthy material, but, you know.
No, because where are our snacks currently sat?
Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's almost as if it's a sign, gentlemen.
What, that you can't trust anything from Cincinnati? They won't deliver.
I don't think that feeds into your point, James.
Well, I'm going to play the music because our Super Bowl show has to have the Club Dub music. So I'm going to say both the Rams and the Bengals, congratulations for making it this far. Enjoy your pre-Super Bowl celebrations in Club Dub. And for all of us, I mean, we're looking forward to getting together in person on Sunday to have a huge Super Bowl party. I'm sure many listeners are as well. Wherever you are, wherever you watch, whatever you do, have the most amazing time for what is the most brilliant sporting spectacle of the entire year. The only thing I hate about the whole Super Bowl experience is on Monday, it's all over for such a long time. So let's just bask in the glow of Super Bowl week and enjoy the game. Gentlemen, thanks for your company. Some amazing insight as always. Right, guys, let's catch up again in 7 days.
Thanks, Rob.
See you, pals.
Thanks a lot.
This is amazing. Woo!
Remember to subscribe and be cool. Tell your friends.